Chapter 5873. Originally, when they were on the ship, they wanted to get together and have a good discussion with each other. In the end, Lin Yi was either refining pills in seclusion or cultivating in seclusion. There was really no chance for them to chat. Since there was still some time, they could eat and chat together to make up for some regrets. When they arrived at the dining hall, they saw Shang Yuhua standing up and waving to them. She and Shang Wani were already sitting at a round table waiting. It was more than enough to accommodate Lin Yi and the others. But before Lin Yi could go over, the 4 people who asked him to concoct the pills all popped out of nowhere, as if they had planned it beforehand. They had a meaningful smile on their faces as they cupped their fists and said, "Master Lin, our pills are done, right?" Wei Shenjin did not know the mystery, but he was very polite to the 4 people. "You can come to see Master Lin later. Now we have to go eat first. As for the matter of refining pills, let's wait for Master Lin to finish eating, okay?" Han Zhong was indeed an old fox who had been in the business world for many years. He saw a clue from the expressions of the 4 people. Normal people who asked for pills would not be as arrogant as the 4 of them, so he quietly stepped forward and stood beside Lin Yi. This subconscious action also showed that Han Zhong and Lin Yi's determination to advance and retreat together, which made Lin Yi's heart slightly warm. It was still very happy to have such a friend by his side. However, Lin Yi did not need them to worry about refining pills. Everything was under his control, so he smiled and patted Wei Shenjin's shoulder. "It's okay, I'll talk to them first. You take Brother Hong and the others to sit first. I'll come in a while." "Yes, boss. Then we'll go first." Wei Shenjin was absolutely obedient to Lin Yi. After immediately agreeing, he respectfully invited Hong Zhong and the others to go to Shang Yuhua's place. Hong Zhong whispered in Lin Yi's ear, "Brother Lin, these guys are a little strange. Is there a problem?" "Don't worry, Brother Hong. There won't be a problem." Lin Yi smiled faintly, gave him a reassuring look, and signaled him to go over there first. Seeing that Lin Yi was really confident, Hong Zhong didn't say much. He really admired Lin Yi's means, so if Lin Yi said there was no problem, then there must be no problem. He didn't need to worry about anything. After Hong Zhong left, Lin Yi smiled at the 4 and said, "Do the 4 of you want to find a quiet place to talk?" He didn't ask why the 4 of them suddenly got together. It didn't matter. In any case, the 4 of them wouldn't have the chance to ask Lin Yi to refine pills for them in the future. The leading guy had a faintly discernible sarcasm in the corner of his mouth. He smiled lightly and said, "There's no need. Anyway, it's not a shameful thing. Master Lin, just tell me if you have finished refining." The news he got from Zhang Tianqing was that Lin Yi had failed the pill concoction. Since that was the case, he had to spread the news as much as possible, and a place with a lot of people like the restaurant was the most suitable place. If he wasn't worried that Lin Yi would leave first when he disembarked the ship, Zhang Tianqing might instruct these 4 guys to refine pills when they arrived at the extreme North Island. At that time, Lin Yi's notoriety would not only be known by these people on the ancient warship, but also by the entire extreme North Island in the shortest time. However, the effect in the restaurant wouldn't be too bad. As the saying goes, good things don't go out, evil things go 1,000 miles. This kind of shameful news spread the fastest, so Zhang Tianqing didn't continue to wait. Without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, another guy said in a lukewarm tone, "Master Lin, we heard a rumor that you will tell us that you have failed to refine pills and then swallow our things. This shouldn't be true, right?" "Master Lin, these profound level 1 elixirs are extremely precious. Of course, we believe in your ability to refine pills, but if you want to keep it for yourself, it's too disgraceful. For kinds of profound level 1 elixirs, you should at least refine 2 or 3 of them, right?" The 3rd guy also said. Before Lin Yi said anything, they had already put the hat of failure on Lin Yi's head. Lin Yi originally wanted to give them the elixir and kill them as soon as possible. They were about to reach the extreme North Island, and he didn't want to waste time with these small fries. But since they didn't even let him speak, then he might as well not say anything. Today, he wanted to see how these guys were going to deal with this. The fourth guy was also unwilling to be left out. He snorted and said, "Master Lin, you don't say anything. What do you mean? Is it true that you didn't refine a single elixir? Or is it that you succeeded in refining one or something? At least give us a definite answer?" These guys' voices were getting louder and louder, as if they were afraid that others couldn't hear them. Wei Xinjin's face had already changed a little, and he suddenly stood up to teach them a lesson. Shang Wanyi, Kai Zhongyang, and the others also couldn't stand it anymore, so they also stood up. Most of these people on the ancient battleship knew each other, whether it was the Central Island or the North Island. Even if they hadn't seen each other, they had heard of each other. For example, these four guys who spoke were the higher-ups of several small sects and small families in the Central Island. Compared with the vice presidents of big chambers of commerce like Shang Wanyi and Kai Zhongyang, whether it was power or influence, they were completely not on the same level. As long as they came forward, they believed that these four guys would shut up obediently. However, Hong Zhong believed what Lin Yi said just now, so he stopped all of them and let them order the food in peace, lest Lin Yi came over and the food was not served yet. "You guys are really too unruly. How can you talk to Master Lin like this?" Zhang Dongjue, who had been watching the show from the side, couldn't help but walk over, seemingly to help Lin Yi, but in fact he wanted to step on them a few more times. Master Lin's alchemy ability, who on this ancient battleship doesn't know. It's just a few profound level 1 medicinal pills. How can it be difficult for a real alchemy master like Master Lin? Stop joking. Zhang Tianqing also followed over and said with a sinister smile, "Yes, Master Lin's alchemy success rate is very high. Your medicinal pills are absolutely no problem. Now you guys are like this. What do you mean? Don't you believe in Master Lin?" This guy's teeth that had been knocked out before had completely recovered. At this level, broken hands and feet could quickly recover. With medicinal pills, not to mention a few trivial teeth, they didn't even need medicinal pills. They could just use true qi to heal themselves, and they could be put back. However, when Zhang Tianqing saw Lin Yi, those recovered teeth were still faintly painful. Lin Yi looked at Zhang Tianqing and Zhang Dongjue with a faint smile. His eyes looked like he was watching a farce, which made Zhang Tianqing feel that something was wrong. To be continued. Chapter 5874. It was a pity that he couldn't figure out what was wrong for a while. Now that things had come to this point, the arrow had to be fired. Even if he felt a little strange in his heart, Zhang Tianqing could only continue to implement the plan. Let's not talk about Master Lin's success rate. I believe that he will definitely be able to refine all of your pills. But you all know the limitations of an alchemist. He can't refine pills continuously. And in order for Master Lin to concoct the pills as quickly as possible, if he were to forcefully concoct pills continuously, some mistakes would be unavoidable. Hence, you have to be mentally prepared for the worst, which is not being able to get your pills. Zhang Tianqing's mind was racing, desperately thinking about what was wrong, but his mouth naturally took out all the words that he had prepared. Zhang Dongjue said, "An alchemist can't guarantee success in refining pills. In case of failure, there is no liability for compensation, so you can't ask Master Lin for compensation because he failed continuously. Let alone say that Master Lin did this deliberately to embezzle your spirit herbs. This is really ridiculous." The leader of the four said loudly, "Since there's a taboo that a refiner can't concoct pills continuously, then Lin Yi knows about this taboo, but he's still forcing himself to do it. Isn't that irresponsible? In addition to taking out the spirit herbs for alchemy, we also gave a large amount of alchemy fees. Now don't you have an explanation?" That's right. Who knows whether he really failed in alchemy or he didn't refine pills at all? If he didn't do alchemy at all and just said that the alchemy failed, how can we know whether it is true or false? Another person who cooperated tacitly said immediately. Zhang Tianqing waved his hand and said righteously, "You underestimate Master Lin too much. I heard him say before that if the people who ask him to refine pills fail, He will bear all the losses and compensate you all. What else do you have to worry about? Master Lin, am I right?" At this time, the eyes of the entire restaurant were focused here. To be more precise, they were focused on Lin Yi. As long as he said that the alchemy failed, he would immediately lose his reputation. Zhang Tianqing was extremely proud of himself. The uneasy feeling from before had long been thrown to the back of his mind. The formulation and implementation of this plan were all led by him. Although he couldn't beat Lin Yi, being able to use this method to destroy Lin Yi was also enough to make him burst with joy. The ridicule on Lin Yi's face grew more and more intense. He glanced at Zhang Tianqing and sneered, "You're asking me? Is it finally my turn to speak? I almost forgot what I was going to say just now, but you guys are really good at making fun of me. I almost forgot what I wanted to say. What a pity. Was the show over just like that? Are there any more performances?" "What do you mean by that? I'm talking business with you. Don't change the subject." The leader of the four people didn't quite understand what Lin meant, but he knew that it was not a good thing, so he said with a cold face, "Young Master Zheng is exonerating you. For his sake, tell us how to compensate." At this time, Zhang Tianqing's heart was inexplicably a little flustered. He expected this kind of emotion to appear on Lin Yi, but looking at Lin Yi's calm face, there was no trace of panic. This matter was really strange. Lin Yi glanced at the guy who spoke faintly and nodded slightly. "You are from the Wu family of Zhongdao, aren't you? Not bad. It's quite vivid to play an old monkey. Hey, why is your face red? Is this a monkey's butt? Your acting skills are really amazing." The guy from the Wu family of Zhongdao suddenly became angry and roared, "Lin Yi, don't talk about it. Do you think you can delay time and get away with it? Let me tell you, it's impossible." Although he was only from a small family, he still felt embarrassed when he was humiliated in public. Anyway, Lin Yi was going to lose his reputation this time, so he had nothing to worry about. However, the next moment he was dumbfounded. A small jade bottle was thrown in front of him by Lin Yi. Because he didn't pay much attention to it, the jade bottle fell to the ground and broke into pieces. A Longan-sized elixir rolled out, and a faint fragrance of elixir floated in the air. Mountain Channel Elixir of Profound Level 1. And it's a special quality Mountain Channel Elixir. A nearby diner stood up abruptly and exclaimed with rapid breathing. He didn't even care that the teacup in his hand fell to the ground. If it wasn't for the fact that this was an ancient warship, he would have snatched it. The Mountain Channel Elixir was a high-grade elixir used by giants in the mountain opening period. Its effect was to widen the width and thickness of the meridians, allowing the user to accommodate more true qi. This kind of elixir did not directly increase one's cultivation level and strength. However, in a battle, it could allow an opponent of the same cultivation level to smoothly use more true qi. Therefore, the Mountain Channel Elixir was not inferior to elixirs that could directly increase one's cultivation level and strength. Unfortunately, this kind of elixir could only be taken once in the entire mountain opening period. There would be no effect if it was taken more. Therefore, the value of this special quality Mountain Channel Elixir was even more indescribable. Because it could only be taken once, it was not an exaggeration to say that a special quality Mountain Channel Elixir could be sold for 100 times more than a low-quality Mountain Channel Elixir at an auction. This is the Mountain Channel Elixir that you asked me to refine. Now that the transaction is over, the Wu family of Middle Island will be listed as unwelcome in Tiandan Pavilion. I will no longer accept any elixir refining commission from anyone related to the Wu family of Middle Island. Lin Yi announced this decision expressionlessly. No one would think that he had done anything wrong. If he hadn't refined the elixir, his previous behavior would still be reasonable. However, not only had Lin Yi completed the commission, but it was also a special quality elixir. Therefore, it was reasonable for him to ask for additional fees. It was too lenient to just blacklist the Wu family to express his anger. The face of the guy from the Wu family of Middle Island instantly turned pale. It was as if an invisible hand was strangling his throat. He couldn't even say a word. Even the head of the Wu family would not be able to bear the consequences of offending a high-rank alchemist who could refine a special-grade mountain channel pill, let alone a high-ranking member of the Wu family. After all, the Wu family would not be able to bear the consequences. Chapter 5875. Shang Wani also said, "The Universal Chamber of Commerce also agrees with Vice President Hong's proposal. Five Elements Commerce also agrees. Kai Zhongyang, of course, would not be left behind." In just a breath's time, the third largest chamber of commerce in Middle Island announced their decision to advance and retreat with Tiandan Pavilion, pushing the Wu family into an endless abyss. The guy from the Wu family of Middle Island was already as pale as a sheet. He wanted to kill himself in front of Lin Yi and beg him to let the Wu family of Middle Island go. "Hong Zhong, what right do you have to make such a decision on behalf of the Hong Chamber of Commerce? What a joke. I'm the one in charge of the Hong Chamber of Commerce here." Wei Jiating suddenly jumped out and shouted angrily. They were both vice presidents, but Wei Jiating came from the headquarters, while Hong Zhong was only the shopkeeper of the North Island branch. It was reasonable for him to say this. Unfortunately, when it came to Lin Yi, Hong Zhong would never back down. Moreover, Wei Jiating's blatant objection was equivalent to completely exposing the truth of the internal strife of the Hong Chamber of Commerce in front of so many people. It was also a huge blow to the reputation of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Hong Zhong's expression turned cold. Without any nonsense, he directly flashed and appeared in front of Wei Jiating like a ghost. He raised his hand and slapped him. With a crisp slap, Wei Jiating's face was slapped to the side, turning more than 90 degrees. Apart from the clear palm print, his face was also full of shock and disbelief. He never thought that Hong Zhong would hit him directly without saying anything. What was even more terrifying was that he clearly saw Hong Zhong's attack, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't dodge it. Or rather, he couldn't even make a move to dodge. Hong Zhong's slap was not too heavy, but it smashed Wei Jiating's face into pieces. He didn't dare to react. All along, he had thought that his strength should be above Hong Zhong's. Only now did he clearly realize that even two Wei Jiating combined might not be Hong Zhong's match. "Remember, my surname is Hong, not yours. If you want to discredit the Hong Chamber of Commerce, you can continue to try." Hong Zhong's cold voice rang in Wei Jiating's ears. The murderous intent in his voice made him shudder. However, when he looked up, Hong Zhong had already returned to his seat as if nothing had happened. After this incident, Wei Jiating had no face to continue staying there. He snorted coldly and turned to leave. The matter of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was settled. Lin Yi didn't expect Hong Zhong to suddenly show his thunderous means, but he also understood that although this brother was not a direct descendant of the Hong family, he was still a member of the Hong family. The small conflicts in the North Island were much more serious than the situation just now, but because it happened in his own family, he didn't want to lose his temper at all. This time, however, he had embarrassed the Hong Chamber of Commerce in public. He had already touched Hong Zhong's bottom line. That was why Wei Jiating was in a tragedy. The people in the restaurant didn't pay much attention to Hong Zhong at first, but after this little episode, there were obviously more people paying attention to Hong Zhong. However, Lin Yi didn't care about these things. He continued to take out 3 jade bottles and threw them to the other 3. "These are your elixirs. Check them yourself." After the 3 subconsciously caught the jade bottles, Lin Yi continued, "The transaction is over. Like the Wu family, the 3 of you are also listed as unwelcome customers of Tiandan Pavilion. Anyone related to you is on my list of refusing alchemy." Hong Zhong and the others also expressed the same position. These 3 guys were also completely dumbfounded. Originally, they only agreed to help Zheng Dongxing for some small benefits. They didn't expect to offend Lin Yi, a high-level alchemist, and cause such big trouble for their respective families. It was a sin that could not be redeemed even if they died 100 times. Pill Hall will also refuse any cooperation with these 4 families. Li Zhaoyi suddenly came in outside the door, and as soon as he spoke, he represented the Pill Hall to support Lin Yi, which made him a little puzzled. This matter was originally caused by Zhang Dongjue and the others. Li Zhaoyi openly supported him. Wasn't it obvious that he was going against the Zhang family? Lin Yi glanced at the people of the Zhang family curiously, but found that apart from their pale faces, they actually had no intention of refuting. When the 4 guys heard Li Zhaoyi's decision, they fell to the ground weakly and looked at Zhang Dongjue and Zhang Tianqing miserably. Unfortunately, these 2 guys had hearts of stone. They would never speak for them at this time. Li Zhaoyi glanced at Zhang Dongjue lightly and said, "Deputy Hall Master Zhang, is there any problem with my decision? These 4 people humiliated us alchemists, which is equivalent to humiliating the entire Pill Hall. I think this kind of people is really not qualified to cooperate with the Pill Hall, right?" "Yes, Master Li Zhaoyi is right." Zhang Dongjue gritted his teeth and nodded, and barely squeezed out an ugly smile. Lin Yi nodded gently at Li Zhaoyi, thanking her for speaking up for justice, but that was all. Anyway, it was the same without her. Li Zhaoyi hesitated for a moment, but still nodded slightly in response. Unfortunately, when she nodded, Lin Yi had already turned and walked towards Wei Xinjin and the others. Was this a waste of expression? Looking at the elixirs in the hands of the 4 people on the ground, although 3 of the bottles were only slightly opened, Li Zhaoyi could be sure that they were all special quality elixirs, which made her more and more curious about Lin Yi. To be able to refine yin and yang pill alone, and be able to continuously refine special quality elixirs in a short period of time. Could this Lin Yi really be the disciple of the pill god? But why had she never heard of it before? Taking a deep look at Lin Yi's back, Li Zhaoyi did not stay, but turned and walked out of the restaurant, as if she had lost interest in eating. Zhang Dongjue glared at Zhang Tianqing fiercely. He thought it was a perfect plan, but it turned out to be an idiot who thought he was infallible. Now, it was not an exaggeration to say that he had suffered a double loss. If it wasn't for Zhang Tianqing's final vow that Lin Yi would definitely fail in alchemy, the 4 guys would not have been so persistent. They did not even give Lin Yi a chance to speak, which led to them being killed by the special quality elixirs in the end. Now that the 4 had suffered such a big loss, if Zhang Dongjue did not take out something to compensate them, they might reveal the whole thing. Chapter 5876. If he didn't do this, he would have to bear all the losses this time. Those spiritual grasses and spiritual jades made Zhang Dongjue's heart ache when he thought about it. Lin Yi knew that the 2 from the Zhang family must be behind these 4 people. But he got some benefits, so he didn't care too much about it. In addition, Li Zhaoyi also expressed her support for him. If he continued to pursue the Zhang family, it would inevitably involve the Dan Hall, so temporarily letting it go was the best choice. Of course, although he didn't suffer a loss, Lin Yi still remembered this grudge. If there was a chance in the future, naturally he would get back at them. In the end, this matter was left unsettled. The most unlucky ones were those 4 guys. They caused so much trouble for their family for no reason. Not only did Lin Yi not suffer any losses, but he also made a lot of money from it. He also showed his strength and influence in front of many dignitaries in the Central and Northern Islands. From now on, whether it was the brothers in Tiandan Pavilion or Blue Cloud Pavilion, no one would dare to provoke them casually. 2 hours later, the fleet arrived at the Northern Island on time. Lin Yi didn't rush to disembark, but chatted with Okuda. These people would still take his warship on the way back, so he would also stay here until the auction was over. However, Okuda wouldn't waste his time. When he went to North Island, he also collected a lot of goods and brought them back to sell. Without such trade, they wouldn't be able to support the growing fleet. If they wanted to continue to develop, they definitely wouldn't be able to just transport goods for people. Brother Okuda, you said that before the official auction, there will be a few small trade fairs similar to the ones you held before? Lin Yi asked with great interest. If he could get ghost cicada wings from this kind of trade fairs, it couldn't be better. Okuda nodded and said with a smile, "That's right. The thing I did on the ship was actually learned from this kind of trade fairs. As long as it's a large-scale auction, there will always be a few small trade fairs like this before the start. If Brother Lin is interested, I can help you get a few entry spots." With Okuda's wealth and influence, those small trade fairs would probably send him entry spots in advance. Getting a few more spots wouldn't be a problem at all. And Lin, he was actually a person with a very high status. Maybe someone would take the initiative to send entry spots to him. If that was really the case, it would save Okuda a lot of trouble. While they were talking, Kai Zhongyang and Shang Wani walked over together. First, they greeted Okuda, then said to Lin Yi, "Brother Lin, we have to go find the customer who ordered the Yangji grass to explain the situation. You go back to the reservation and wait for us at the inn." Lin Yi nodded, then asked, "If we don't have it, won't be to the Yangji grass. How about I go with you guys? With more people, we might be able to put in a few good words. That way, the other party won't make things too difficult for you guys." Kai Zhongyang bitterly smiled and shook his head. "That's not necessary. It's not that easy to have more people there. Brother Lin, you should take them to the inn first. I don't think we'll need too much time to go back." Lin Yi nodded and didn't ask any more questions. If Kai Zhongyang could tell him, he definitely wouldn't hide anything. Since he didn't want to explain in detail, it meant that this matter wasn't suitable for too many people to know. Of course, Lin Yi wouldn't force Kai Zhongyang. If that's the case, then Brother Kai and Brother Shang, you two be careful. If you need help, come find me at any time. Lin Yi wasn't worried that the two of them would be in danger. The security of the far north island was very good. Whoever dared to make a move here must be tired of living. However, if the customer who reserved the Yangji grass wanted to make things difficult for Kai Zhongyang, it wouldn't be easy to deal with. After all, he was in the wrong first, so it wouldn't be good for Lin Yi to intervene. After the two agreed, they cupped their fists together and quickly left the ancient worship. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the distance. Seeing that most of the people on the ancient worship had left, Lin Yi bid farewell to Okuda Ba and said, "Brother Okuda, I'll also leave the worship first. If there's anything, you know where to find me." "All right. I'll send you the entry quota for the trade fair as soon as possible. Be careful. If you're not used to living down there, you can just come back here. You're our honorary vice captain," Okuda Ba said with a laugh. At the same time, he reached out and patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Of course," Lin Yi replied with a smile. After chatting for a while, he disembarked the worship with Wei, Shenjin, and Shang Yuhua. As for Hongzhong, Hou Guanqi, and the others, they had already left. They all had their own factions. Since they had just arrived at the far north island, they needed to settle down first. After a while, Lin Yi and the other two followed the people from Five Elements Commerce and stayed in a relatively high-class inn. Kai Zhongyang directly booked a courtyard that was big enough for all of them to stay in. The courtyard could also be used to store some less important and relatively crude goods. During the auction, the rent of the inns in the far north island was very expensive. Moreover, it was very difficult to stay in the inn on the spot. Most of the inns had to be booked. For example, the courtyard that Kai Zhongyang booked had a daily rent of 50,000 spirit jades. There were still a few days before the auction started. When the auction ended, just the rent alone would have to be paid hundreds of thousands of spirit jades. If one wasn't rich and powerful, it would be difficult to even find a place to stay. Not long after Lin Yi and the others chose their own rooms, Kai Zhongyang and Shang Wani came back. Looking at their expressions, it seemed that they weren't able to solve the problem. "Brother Kai, how was it?" Lin Yi came out and asked. If he wanted to help, he needed to know the situation first. Kai Zhongyang shook his head and said, "This time, I didn't even see the person. He said that he wasn't at home. Let's wait until tomorrow. Let's settle down first." It turned out that they didn't even see the person. No wonder. Lin Yi also wanted to help, but he couldn't. He could only casually comfort Kai Zhongyang and let it go. Shang Wani and Kai Zhongyang made an appointment to go together again tomorrow. Then they went back to the place where the Universal Chamber of Commerce lived with Shang Yuhua. They had just arrived here, so there were still a lot of things to do. After Lin Yi chose a room, he went out with Wei Xinjin. He couldn't interfere with the matters of Five Elements commerce. Anyway, there was nothing to settle down. So he simply went to the business street of the far north island to take a look. Chapter 5877. Although Wei Xinjin was a genius disciple of the Middle Island's Snow Sword School, he didn't have the opportunity to come to the extreme North Island. This time it could be considered as an eye-opener. Boss, this extreme North Island is really a good place. Although the area is a bit small, it's not an exaggeration to say that it's a small place, but the spirit chi is a lot denser than the Middle Island. Wei Xinjin walked beside Lin Yi and exclaimed in admiration. Unfortunately, Shang Yuhua went back with her father. Otherwise, it would be very good to stroll around together. Lin Yi slightly smiled and said, "It's because the area is small that it can maintain its current transcendent position. If the area was as big as the North Island, it would have already been divided by some sections." Wei Xinjin nodded and said, "That's true. If the island was a bit bigger, perhaps it wouldn't have such a position now. Speaking of which, the extreme North Island seems to be controlled by a family, right? Although this family's reputation is not prominent, it should be an extremely powerful family. Otherwise, the extreme North Island would have already changed owners. I heard that the extreme North Island's ruler is the Li family. Last time I came here, I didn't see anyone from their family. The one who came was Li family's steward Song. This time, the level of the auction is a lot higher. Perhaps there will be someone from the Li family to host it." Lin Yi casually guessed. In fact, he didn't care whether or not there would be someone from the Li family to host it. While talking, the two of them had already arrived at the only Chamber of Commerce in the extreme North Island. The name was also very simple. It was called the Extreme North Chamber of Commerce. Two young and beautiful girls stood at the door. When they saw the guests, they respectfully bowed and greeted them with a sweet voice. "Welcome to the Extreme North Chamber of Commerce. How can I help you?" One of the girls asked with a smile. The last time Lin Yi came to the extreme North Island, he didn't have a chance to stroll around. Most of the time was used for alchemy. Therefore, this was also the first time he came to the extreme North Chamber of Commerce. With such two beautiful girls welcoming the guests, at least his impression was not bad. Wei Xinjin suddenly felt a little uneasy in front of the two young and beautiful girls. Although he had a failed marriage and was developing well with Shang Yuhua, he still felt a little flustered when he saw beautiful girls. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "We're just looking around." "Okay, if there is anything you need, please call us at any time. We will definitely come as soon as possible." The girl still maintained her sweet smile as she bowed and invited Lin Yi and the girl into the extreme North Chamber of Commerce. As soon as he entered the door, the first thing he saw was not the display of the goods, but a distribution map. It was very similar to the shopping malls in the secular world. It could be seen that the people of the extreme North Chamber of Commerce were really business-minded. Lin Yi glanced at it slightly. There were a total of 5 floors where the goods were sold. The first floor sold weapons and armor props. The second floor sold spirit grass and spirit fruit. The third floor sold casting materials. The fourth floor sold medicinal pills. The fifth floor sold books and secret manuals of martial arts, array Dao, alchemy Dao, tools Dao, and so on. Judging from the number of people on the first floor, the business here was still very good. For things like weapons and armor, Lin Yi didn't have much interest. The auction was coming. The really good weapons and armor props would be taken to the auction. It was impossible to sell them here. Therefore, he took Wei Xinjin directly to the second floor. This extreme North Chamber of Commerce had restrictions on divine sense. Therefore, it was impossible for Lin Yi to use divine sense to sweep the entire building, unless he used divine sense attack skills to tear these restrictions. However, that would be tantamount to completely falling out with the extreme North Chamber of Commerce. There was no enmity between them. Lin Yi wouldn't do such a brainless thing. Lin Yi was still somewhat interested in the spirit grass and spirit fruit on the second floor. He looked at it slightly, but there was nothing that he was in urgent need of. Boss, this extreme North Chamber of Commerce is really worthy of its reputation. Look, there is even a piece of thunder Xian Rot Tan. Wei Xinjin lowered his voice and said with great excitement, Thunder Xian Rot Tan was simply priceless in other places. He didn't expect that the extreme North Chamber of Commerce would just casually display it outside for sale. Lin Yi had a lot of them, and they were no longer of much use to him, so he subconsciously ignored them. But Wei Xinjin was different. He hadn't reached the profound ascension stage. It would be strange if he wasn't excited when he saw the thunder Xian Rot Tan. Lin Yi faintly smiled and said, You want to buy the thunder Xian Rot Tan? The quality of that piece is not good. When you are about to advance to the profound ascension stage, I will give you a thunder Xian pill. So don't worry about that piece of thunder Xian Rot Tan. Wei Xinjin was suddenly overjoyed. Thinking about it, the boss was a profound level 1 or even profound level 2 alchemy master. Refining the thunder Xian pill was easy. He also vaguely knew that Lin Yi boss had a thunder Xian pill. Since the boss said so, there must be no problem. At this time, a young man came up from the first floor. After hearing Lin Yi's words, he suddenly sneered. This extreme North Island really has a lot of nouveau riche bumpkins. They actually said that the thunder Xian Rot Tan is not good and directly gave a thunder Xian pill. Lin Yi faintly glanced at the young man. He didn't want to pay attention to him. It doesn't matter what other people think or say, as long as they don't affect Lin Yi. Wei Xinjin was grateful to Lin Yi in his heart. When he heard this, he glared and said, It's not your fault that you are ignorant. No one will blame you, even if you come out and make a fool of yourself. It's just that you casually fart like this. Don't you think it's too much to poison innocent people? You want to die. The young man's face froze. At the same time, his eyes flashed a sharp killing intent, and a middle-aged man who followed behind him quickly pulled his arm and whispered, Young master, we are also newcomers. There's no need to make enemies with people. Let's go back and investigate their background first. Lin Yi casually glanced at the two people. He heard the middle-aged man's whisper clearly. However, he was too lazy to care. If they really wanted to come and court death, then he would help them. Wei Xinjin, let's go up. Don't waste time with these boring people here. Lin Yi said faintly and walked to the third floor. After Wei Xinjin snorted, he didn't continue to say anything. He turned around and followed Lin Yi. The young man looked at them coldly as they went upstairs, then said to the middle-aged man with dissatisfaction, Uncle Li, you are too cautious. You have to investigate everyone's background first before you meet them. Do you think we are afraid of anyone? Chapter 58-78. The young man snorted twice and muttered in a low voice, You only know how to use my father to suppress me. I don't care. Those two brats just now were too arrogant. Uncle Li, quickly find someone to inquire about their background. As long as they are not people you can't provoke, just kill them directly. Uncle Li agreed and was about to say something when 3 people came up the stairs. The young man looked at them casually and paused. Zhang Tianqing, why are you here? The 3 who came later were Zhang Dongsheng, Zhang Dongjue, and Zhang Tianqing. Hearing his name, he raised his head happily. Isn't this Master Qian? What a coincidence to actually meet you on the extreme North Island. Zhang Tianqing quickly walked 2 steps ahead of his grandpa and second grandpa, standing in front of the young man, and cupped his fists respectfully. Master Qian, Mr. Li, it's been a while. How have you been? Not bad. I heard you went to Zhongdao, right? How is it? Is it okay? The young man, young Master Qian, waved his hand carelessly and asked casually. Zhang Dongsheng and Zhang Dongjue came over and asked Zheng Tianqing with a smile. Tianqing, these two are… Master Qian, Mr. Li, let me introduce you. Zhang Tianqing pointed at Zhang Dongsheng with a face full of smiles. This is my grandpa Zheng Dongsheng. This is my second grandpa Zhang Dongjue, the vice head of Zhongdao's Elixir Hall. Master Qian didn't have much of a reaction, but Uncle Li's face turned serious as he cupped his fists. Zhongdao's Elixir Hall, the one Zhang Liju created? Zhang Dongjue was a bit annoyed. He wanted to take the position of the head of the Elixir Hall, but Zhang Liju was like a mountain on top of his head. Whenever someone mentioned Elixir Hall, the first person they thought of was Zhang Liju. As for Zhang Dongjue, who is that? Never heard of it. Uncle Li's reaction was a perfect example of Liju's influence. Zhang Dongsheng was a famous elixir refiner in Dongzhou, but he didn't care at all. If it weren't for the Elixir Hall, he'd probably just give them a nod of greeting and be done with it. Zhang Tianqing didn't care about his second grandpa's thoughts at all. He smiled and nodded. Yes, Mr. Li has heard of it? My second grandpa is the vice head of the elixir god Zhang Liju's Elixir Hall, and he's one of the top people in Zhongdao. At this point, Zhang Tianqing turned to his two grandfathers and said, This is young master Qian Xiaodong, a genius disciple of Xixing Academy in the East Continent. He is also the young master of Rapid City. Mr. Li is the guest elder of Rapid City. He was entrusted by the master to take care of young Master Qian. Zhang Dongsheng was originally a little dissatisfied. These two people didn't react at all when they heard his name. Now he knew that they seemed to have such a great background. He immediately smiled and lowered his posture. So it's young Master Qian and Mr. Li. It's an honor to meet you. West Star Academy had a great reputation in the East Continent, and was even stronger than the yellow-ranked Morning Star Cultivator Academy that Zheng Dongsheng was originally from. However, its geographical location was rather remote, and it was in a completely different direction from the Morning Star Academy, so there wasn't much interaction. Rapid City was right next to Xixing Academy, and this city was also one of the stronger cities in the East Continent. Zhang Dongsheng, of course, had heard of it before. Naturally, he wanted to curry favor with Qian Xiaodong. If he could get on good terms with these two, he might be able to return to the East Continent. Qian Xiaodong nodded to Zhang Dongsheng casually and said, It's an honor to meet you. He then said to Zhang Tianqing, When are you going back to the East Continent, kid? Without you, we brothers don't have much fun. What do you think? Do you want to go back with me after the auction? Zhang Tianqing was flattered and bowed. Young Master Qian, you really think too highly of me. But after the auction, I still have some things to take care of in Zhongdao, so I won't be able to go back with you. But don't worry, young Master Qian. I'll get back to the East Continent as soon as possible. Zhang Dongsheng secretly gritted his teeth. This was such a good opportunity. Little bastard, you don't know how to think about your grandfather. If you don't want to go back, at least let me go back with young Master Qian first. In fact, Zhang Tianqing really didn't dare to go back with Qian Xiaodong, although he and Qian Xiaodong often played together in the East Continent. But because of the difference in status, Zhang Tianqing was just a follower of Qian Xiaodong. He would be teased by them for no reason, and even when he suffered a loss, he still had to smile apologetically. Zhang Dongsheng originally had the identity of a second-seat alchemist in Morning Star Academy. But later on, he courted death and was kicked out of the East Continent. Zhang Tianqing's life became even more difficult, so he did not hesitate to come to Zhongdao from the East Continent. Otherwise, who would be willing to leave the East Continent? You really have a lot of things to do. Qian Xiaodong smacked his lips discontentedly, then waved his hand and said, Forget it. Let's not talk about this first. Just now, two boys offended me. Uncle Li used my father to pressure me and told me not to cause trouble. Can you help me see if I know those two boys? Do they have any scary background? Uncle Li smiled bitterly and shook his head. Qian Xiaodong was talented, Otherwise, he would not have become a genius disciple of Xixing Academy. Unfortunately, he was spoiled by his father since he was a child, so his character was more arrogant and overbearing. The matter just now was not worth mentioning at all. The cause was that Qian Shaodong provoked them, and a few words of conflict was not a big deal. However, he was not willing to give up until he killed those two young men. Uncle Li could not persuade him on this matter, so he could only do as Qian Shaodong said. It just so happened that Zhang Tianqing and the other two were here. Maybe he could use them to do things, and it would save a lot of trouble. Uncle Li had already made up his mind, so he did not speak. Zhang Tianqing said with a face full of righteous indignation, "Who is so bold to even dare to offend young Master Qian? Let's go and see who it is." Young Master Qian, where did those two ignorant things go? Qian Shaodong was very satisfied with Zhang Tianqing's performance and pointed to the third floor and said, "They just went up. Let's go now. They are probably on the third floor." Zhang Tianqing said to his two grandfathers and walked up with Qian Shaodong. Now that the extreme North Island was full of big figures, he did not dare to be so arrogant usually. But now that Qian Shaodong was with him, Zhang Tianqing was much more confident. Chapter 58-79. Uncle Li wanted to borrow House Zheng's knife to kill, but he didn't expect that Zhang Tianqing was also planning to use Qian Shaodong and Uncle Li as his backing. The group went up to the third floor, and Qian Shaodong saw Lin Yi and Wei Xinjin right away. He pulled Zhang Tianqing and said, "See that? It's those two brats. You don't know how arrogant those two were. If it wasn't for Uncle Li, I would have killed them already." Zhang Tianqing saw Lin Yi and Wei Xinjin, and he was overjoyed. He was just thinking about how to deal with Lin Yi, and he didn't expect that this guy would offend Qian Shaodong. He knew that this Uncle Li beside Qian Shaodong was a true mountain opening practitioner. Even if a black ascending practitioner couldn't kill you, wouldn't a mountain opening practitioner be able to? Zhang Tianqing's mind spun, and he had already thought of a plan to borrow a knife to kill. He pretended to be disdainful and said, "Master Qian, so this is the guy you're talking about. I know him. He's called Lin Yi, a guy who likes to show off everywhere. With his connections, he opened a small elixir shop in Middle Island. I heard that he asked a friend from 5 Elements Commerce to get the qualification to come here, and the one beside him is his follower, an inner disciple of the Snow Sword School." That week? Qian Shaodong asked in amazement. Then he looked at Uncle Li and said, "Uncle Li, are you relieved now? This kind of small fry, we should just kill him." What merchant house? What snow sword sect? They were nothing in Qian Shaodong's eyes. His dad told him not to mess with them, and other than the super noble houses, there was only Zhang Liju from the Pill Hall, Shengguan Tianhua from the North Island, and a few others. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was just a lucky freelancer with some connections. If he knew that Zhang Tianqing purposely hid most of the information about Lin Yi, he might even thank him. He wanted to deal with Lin Yi anyways, so he didn't care who he was. Uncle Li didn't answer directly, but raised his eyebrows and asked, "How much do you know about this Lin Yi? What's his strength now? Who is his master?" Zhang Tianqing curled his lips inwardly. This Uncle Li was quite troublesome. "You're a big shot in the opening phase, and since Lin Yi offended your young master, why don't you just go up and slap him to death? What's the point of talking so much?" But since he had asked, Zhang Tianqing didn't dare to not answer. He could only bow respectfully and say, "Mr. Li, I know Lin Yi very well. He is probably at the peak of the late stage of mystic ascension. And as for his master, he is a disciple of the Qingyun Pavilion in the North Island. What he is learning are the common arts and techniques of the Qingyun Pavilion." "Blue Cloud Pavilion?" Uncle Li repeated and felt a lot more relieved. If it was a disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, then he would persuade Qian Shaodong to give up, because the Soaring Sky Pavilion had Shanghai Tianhua. As for the Blue Cloud Pavilion, although it was also from the North Island, it was not the Soaring Sky Pavilion after all, so it shouldn't be a problem. It was a pity that he didn't know that Lin Yi was someone that Shanghai Tianhua valued. Otherwise, he would never think that it would be easy to deal with Lin Yi. As for the strength of the peak of the profound ascension late stage, with Lin Yi's age, he could indeed be considered a genius. But in front of the mountain opening stage, even the great perfection profound ascension stage would not have any chance. Qian Xiaodong was a little impatient. He turned to Zheng Tianqing and said in a low voice, "Zheng Tianqing, go and kill those 2 brats for me. I'll definitely remember your benefits later." If he could do it himself, Qian Xiaodong would definitely do it himself. That would be more satisfying, but Uncle Li was still hesitant. It was estimated that he wouldn't be able to wait for any results. So he simply encouraged Zheng Tianqing to do it. Zheng Tianqing immediately said with a sad face, "Young Master Qian, how can I be that guy's opponent? He is an expert at the peak of the profound ascension late stage. With my level, I will be killed in seconds. He probably won't even blink an eye." After saying that, he deliberately glanced at Uncle Li, meaning that the only one here who could deal with Lin Yi was probably his Uncle Li. Lin Yi had long discovered that the 3 people of the Zheng family and the 2 fools were together. They were indeed jackals of the same tribe, and their IQs were very low. They wanted to deal with him, but they actually stood here and pointed at him, afraid that he couldn't hear them and didn't know that they wanted to deal with him. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to see if there was any ghost cicada wings. Unfortunately, the extreme North Chamber of Commerce had a lot of things, and there was no lack of good materials, but none of them were what Lin Yi needed. He was in a bad mood, and these guys came to look for trouble. Lin Yi simply walked over and said, "What are you going to do? Just say it. Don't be like a follower. Don't you find it troublesome?" Uncle Li looked at Lin Yi carefully, but he couldn't see through Lin Yi's depth, which made him more cautious. There was no reason for a cultivator at the peak of the profound ascension late stage to be able to hide from his eyes and make him unable to see the opponent's strength. Qian Xiaodong was used to being arrogant, so he didn't have any scruples and directly scolded. "Who are you? How dare you talk to this young master like this? If you want to die, just say it. This young master will definitely fulfill your wish." Lin Yi didn't pay attention to this self-righteous fool. The strength of a mere peak of the nascent soul stage might be considered good among the younger generation. But in front of him, he didn't even have the qualification to fight. "Surname Zheng, you'd better be honest. My patience is limited. This is the last warning." Lin Yi completely ignored Qian Xiaodong and said to the 3 people of the Zheng family. The faces of the 3 people of the Zheng family were a little ugly. They wanted to say a few harsh words, but suddenly found that they really didn't have the courage to say anything more. As an alchemist, their status was indeed relatively noble, but Lin Yi's alchemy level was much more powerful than the 3 of them combined, and in terms of strength, Lin Yi could also beat the 3 of them, so what else was there to say? A wise man doesn't fight when the odds are against him. Endure for a moment. Take a step back and the world will be bright. The 3 people of the Zheng family said these words in their hearts to comfort themselves, and then thought that they should hurry up and carry out the plan, cutting off all the wings of Lin Yi first. Qian Xiaodong was almost mad with anger. He was the dignified young master of Rapid City. Few people in the East Continent dared to ignore his words. But this small disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion of the North Island was simply too much. Chapter 5880. Uncle Li's expression changed slightly. Before the situation was clear, he didn't want to easily become enemies with Lin Yi. But now it was no longer up to him. With Qian Xiaodong's personality, since he made a move, he would never stop. Even Uncle Li wouldn't be able to stop him. Lin Yi sneered. He could easily crush this nascent soul realm idiot to death, and he could use more than 100 different methods without repeating them. But in the end, he didn't choose any of them and let Qian Xiaodong's dagger stab into his body. Of course, Qian Xiaodong's dagger couldn't hurt Zheng Dongxing at all. He only did this because his consciousness had scanned Zheng Dongxing's jade box, and there was a yin core fruit in it. He wanted to get close to Zheng Dongxing, and that was why Qian Xiaodong was so proud. As soon as the dagger touched Lin Yi's clothes, he flew out as if he was hit by a giant hammer. That angle and direction was exactly where Zheng Dongsheng was. No matter how you looked at it, you couldn't see any traces of it being intentional. It was simply perfect coordination. When Lin Yi flew close to Zheng Dongsheng, the old man was afraid of being affected by him. He tried to dodge in a hurry. His mind was a bit scattered, and the opportunity appeared just like that. In terms of this kind of method, Lin Yi was even better than Yu Xiaoke. He had received the teachings of Uncle Dongjun. The moment he passed by, the yin-core fruit in the jade box on Zheng Dongsheng's body was taken away by Lin Yi and put into his storage bag. To Lin Yi, the value of the yin-core fruit really wasn't worth mentioning, but going through so much trouble to get this yin-core fruit definitely wasn't the result of a sudden impulse. It was an action that had been carefully thought out. Since Shang Wani's qi deviation was most likely caused by the Zheng family, then the yin-core fruit that Zheng Dongsheng solemnly kept close to his body was a bit suspicious. There were many more precious spirit herbs and spirit fruits than this. Why did he not bring anything else but the yin-core fruit? So Lin Yi thought that the safest thing to do was to have the yin-core fruit in his hands. If Zheng Dongsheng knew that it was because he valued the yin-core fruit too much that Lin Yi wanted to take it away, would he vomit blood? This yin-core fruit was indeed very important. When Tang Wulsui schemed against Kai Zhongyang, of course, he had to leave a way out for himself. He couldn't frame someone else and end up getting himself into trouble. The person who ordered the Yang extreme grass from the extreme North Island also ordered the yin-core fruit. In other words, Kai Zhongyang being able to obtain the Yang extreme grass was actually the result of Tang Wulsui's secret manipulation. This was because there was only one Yang extreme grass, but there were two yin-core fruits. Taking out a yin-core fruit after consuming the Yang pole grass in Kai Zhongyang's hands, he could still take out a yin-core fruit to complete the order. This was the most important thing. Otherwise, no one would have anything. At most, it would be a lose-lose situation. There was no point in doing something that harmed others without benefiting oneself. Lin Yi didn't know about the twists and turns. He just instinctively thought that it was strange for Zheng Dongsheng to carry the yin-core fruit on him, so he took it away. Anyway, it was something from the Zheng family. It would be a waste not to take it. Qian Xiaodong saw that his attack was effective and was immediately overjoyed. He didn't even notice that Lin Yi flew out on his own. He really thought that he was the one who showed his power and killed Lin Yi, the peak late-stage profound ascension cultivator. It seemed that the peak late-stage profound ascension was not a big deal. Qian Xiaodong thought as he rushed behind Lin Yi. He was now full of confidence. Of course, he wanted to take the opportunity to kill Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't feel like playing games with this guy anymore after getting the fruit. He stomped his feet and turned around to slap the guy's face. He didn't want to kill him for now, since he'd put on a good show with Lin Yi. He'd just teach him a lesson. "Uncle Li, save me." Qian Xiaodong was shocked and immediately screamed. He wasn't a person who didn't know what to do. To be able to become a genius disciple of Xixing Academy, he naturally saw that Lin Yi's casual slap was not something he could withstand. Although this slap wouldn't kill him, it was still very likely that half of his face would be slapped off. Even if he could recover with medicinal pills, Qian Xiaodong didn't want to suffer such an ugly injury. Uncle Li sighed in his heart. He had never relaxed his vigilance against Lin Yi, so he immediately appeared in front of Qian Xiaodong. Even before Qian Xiaodong opened his mouth, he had already blocked Lin Yi's slap. After a slight vibration, the overflowing Jin Qi was completely restrained by Uncle Li. It did not affect any of the display cabinets on the third floor. The surrounding guests were also not affected. Lin Yi stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Uncle Li calmly. It was just an early-stage mountain opening expert. If he wanted to kill him, it wouldn't take too much effort. If this was not the extreme North Chamber of Commerce, but the wilderness, this Uncle Li and Qian Xiaodong would have already been killed by him. Uncle Li looked at Lin Yi with a serious expression. Just now, Lin Yi couldn't show his true strength at all. But seeing the other party's calm appearance, Uncle Lee knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything good today. On the surface, the aura that Lin Yi displayed was indeed the strength of the peak late-stage mysterious ascension realm. However, Uncle Lee's intuition told him that Lin Yi was not afraid of him, an early-stage mountain opening magnate realm cultivator. This kind of person was too scary. He was so young and had such strength. If he couldn't kill him in one go, then it was best not to offend him. Otherwise, with the potential that Lin Yi had shown, there might be a strong enemy that Rapid City couldn't face in the future. Little friend Lin, this matter is just a misunderstanding. How about we forget about it and not mention it? Uncle Lee smiled and said sincerely, if they could reconcile, then it would naturally be for the best. Qian Xiaodong was still hoping that Uncle Lee could teach Lin Yi a lesson. How could he be willing to make peace? He immediately said angrily, Uncle Lee, what are you talking about? Hurry up and kill this bastard. He actually dared to attack me. The people of Rapid City have never suffered such a loss before. Lin Yi glanced at Qian Xiaodong disdainfully and said with a faint smile, misunderstanding? Why doesn't it look like it? Uncle Lee's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Lin Yi didn't want to reconcile. If Qian Xiaodong didn't say anything, then perhaps Lin Yi would agree to his proposal. Unfortunately, his words had no effect other than making an enemy for Rapid City. Everyone, it is forbidden to fight in our extreme North Chamber of Commerce. If there is a next time, then don't blame us for not warning you. A short and fat middle-aged man appeared on the third floor with a smile and said gently,